Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Robert Wedderburn Podcast. Today I'm chatting with an Emmy award-winning producer who has done extensive work in South Africa and who is originally from Norway and is based at this moment in time in Bristol in England, Alex Sletten. Hello Alex and welcome to the podcast. It's lovely to have you on the show.
Likewise, love to be here.
How did you get into wildlife filmmaking?
Well, how do you get into wildlife filmmaking? This is a very good question. I think a lot of us got in as a different route because you know if you think about it, you actually don't need an education to be a wildlife filmmaker. You got to have the skills. So I started off by studying a bit of biology, and I left for the Congo. I didn't go up north to study polar bears. I went south. I went to the Congo and I studied chimpanzees on and off for about 3 years. I've always taken photos. I always filmed, like, since I was a kid. I remember I was down in the Canary Islands and I was framing up these flowers in the background, the mountains in the background. I was, always thinking composition, I think. And I had watched a film as a kid, and it was a film called Strandwolf, which is back then. I don't know who made it, but I remember a name called Kim Voliter, which is I saw a very famous South African filmmaker. But anyway, but I've kind of left that. I thought, it's not possible to become a wildlife filmmaker. It just looks too hard. So I went about studying a bit of biology, and I left for the Congo. And while I was there, I was taking a lot of photos. I had I think I had a Nikon D70, the first digital camera came out. I used all my savings, and I had a little camera as well. And I was filming and I was taking photos, and I was honestly a lot more interested in that than writing down what the chimpanzees were doing every 10 minutes. So it was obviously an amazing place to be, and it kind of I always wanted to go to Congo. I didn't realize, not a lot of people had been there taking photos and filming. So, and we were out in the wild. So I was, we were charged daily by forest elephants. I saw gorillas, wild gorillas. I saw, I saw wild chimpanzees. There's never been, I don't think anybody's seen before. And the forest is just amazing people. And then when I came back from one of those trips, and I had gotten a picture of a lizard, I think it was a plated lizard or something like that. It used to live just outside my cabin. It used to hide in a metal tube. And I remember it was a macro shot. I was lying down, and as this lizard came out, I snapped a couple of shots of it. And I guess it looked all right. And I sent it into an English magazine, and I won an award for it. It's a small local thing, but I thought, okay, if I can crack off, and this small little guy from southern Norway, from a little meaningless town, can win an award, maybe I'll just give it a shot. So I went on to study films, and I hated it, absolutely hated it. I just wasn't what I liked the documentary part. I just didn't like the whole. So I dropped out after a year, and this was now 2007, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go full in. So I left for South Africa, and I took a course called the Wildlife Film Academy in Cape Town in 2007. I actually came to South Africa on the day that you guys won the Rugby Cup.
Okay.
Pretty crazy. Yeah. It was the first time in Cape Town. It was like, wow. I did that course, and then before that course ended, I landed a job for actually a company called Wild Earth. I was there for a while, and they kind of just progressed for this, and I was suddenly a freelance cameraman, and that was my new life.
And how many years did you spend as a cameraman in South Africa?
I'm going back and forth from Norway, a little bit in the States, and then in South Africa mainly. And I'm there for quite a while. But after landing my first job, and I thought, you think that, okay, I'm sorted now. I'm filming leopards. I'm in the Sabi Sands. I know what I'm doing. I didn't know anything. I was clueless, actually. And I think the only thing that I had was stamina. I just knew that I wanted to do this. That's actually all I had. No charisma, no skills, just stamina. And I had to find a way to make a living So after I left Wild Earth and I was getting the odd jobs, but this wasn't like, I remember sitting in Johannesburg, which is like, for me, being an international living in Africa, you're in the big city in Africa, is like probably the worst place you can be, because, you want to be out in the wild, and you sat in Johannesburg waiting for a job. And I had always had a knack for story. I always, always saw stories. I see stories all the time and see how they progress from A to Z. And I thought, I have to have an edge. I don't want to go up and just ask for a job in Bristol or the BBC. I'm never going to get a job. I don't have that. So, but what I can do is that I can develop a skill that I think I already have a bit of, that will put me in the front seat in front of everyone else. And that skill was development. I didn't understand it then. I was just like, okay, this is a good idea. This is a good idea. And so what I did is that I was on the job, and I heard of a guy called Darren Simpson. He was a government trapper that has turned into conservation. He turned conservationist. He was based in North Carolina by then, and he was coming a lot to South Africa. And this kind guy called Will, he allowed me to. He hired him to catch leopards in Lydenburg, and he allowed me to kind of tag along and film it, so I could make a promo. And I did this with then my current filming partner from the US. And we stayed way too long. We filmed for a month. I mean, crazy, a promo. It's nuts, but that's what we did. We filmed. And we even went up to North Carolina to interview him. And we had no idea. I just thought this might be a good show for a National Geographic or Animal Planet. And he caught many leopards. He put the radio collar on, released them. There was a lot of action. I remember we cut a reel, and there was a film festival in Durban, Wild Talk. Yeah. And I went to, I really had to build up a lot of confidence. And I went up to the commissioning editor back then of Animal Planet International. His name was Viv Simpson. And I had probably the worst pitch of the century, but I come shaking with a little pitch reel. I was like, hey, I have this idea about this trapper from America. He's a great character. And then he just took there was a DVD that I think I burnt the CD, and he was like, oh, this looks interesting. I'll take it. And then he wrote me and said, oh, this looks interesting. And I had no idea what I was doing. So I went to a company called Trisphere. And I said, hey, I got the story. There might be some interest from Animal Planet. Are you guys keen? And then kind of from there on, it took off, and I managed to weave my way over the years into the, becoming a wildlife cameraman, and, then from there on, business owner and producer and all that. Yeah.
What is your current occupation right now? Do you get to go into the field every now and then, or are you mainly business orientated?
So yeah, the amazing thing about owning your own company is obviously if you want to go into the field, you can go into the field. The problem is that when you run a business and you do development and you do a lot of things, it's really hard to go into the field. And so I try to stay out of it. I try to, if we have a shoot, if it's a short shoot, I can join. Or if it's something that I really want to do, I might try to shoot it. But now I haven't shot in a while, so I probably should stay out of it and leave it to the professionals. But currently, yeah, so I own a company called Story Search Films. We're based in Bristol. We've been around for about 2 years now. And we sell factual productions, everything from, documentaries to crime, to wildlife. And wildlife is obviously the main category that we operate in. Yeah.
What advice would you give to people who have filmed something and they've got a concept or they've got something that they would like to get out there to the world? Would you be someone that they would come to talk to, or what would be the process to get a project from grassroots to someone like you, and then to get it out into the world or get it sold?
So it's a very good question, and it's one that it took me a long time to understand how this whole thing works. So one of the things that we do as a company is that we talk to the networks that buy the specific programming. So I take wildlife. We do talk to National Geographic pretty often. we would talk to the BBC. We would talk, and we would get an understanding of what they're looking for. What program is doing well? What program is rating? What are they looking for now? What are the budgets? And so with that, when somebody comes to me with a film, I can pretty much say, okay, this might work for this network, with this network, or it won't work at all. And the thing is, the beautiful thing, I guess, with people that aren't in development, you see a great story and you film it. The danger is that, it might not sell. So I would advise, if you can and you have access, go directly to the channel and talk about your projects, If they see that you are inexperienced in, they'll team you up with somebody. That is the way of exerting more power, because it's your story. Otherwise, you can team up with production houses like myself. You can come to us at Story Surge, and we'll tell you straight away where we think this film might be, eligible to be sold, or a channel that it could be sold to. We'll run you through the whole structure, how it works. We work with open budgets, so you'll see where all the money is going. What networks often look for is not just the creative parts. You might be, a really good, up and coming, amazing director. Like, really is, like, there's some amazing people out there, which is like blows me out of the water. But you as an individual don't have, you don't have the ability to maybe get insurance. You don't have the ability to hire a, very, very good line producer. There's so many things, you gotta watch your budget. You got the deliverables afterwards. There's so many things in a film production, and it's a big team of people. So, if you don't want to deal with all of that, coming to a company like Story Surge, or, anyone else for that matter that you trust, is going to elevate the chances of you getting this program off the ground. Yeah.
One of the things that you spoke about was insurance, and insurance is a big issue for me, especially filming in places that most people don't go to film, like in the Amazon jungle. Here in Ecuador, it's very hard to get insurance if you live in Ecuador. And there's certain insurances that they might be able to provide, but you might not be able to get what you really need. And it's very hard to as you say, to do all of these things by yourself.
No, you have to have, as a production house, you usually have a core team within development, and you have a line producer usually, and these are people that either usually full-time staff, or they come on long contracts, and they are expert in that field, and you got to have it. I don't know how to do all this. I wouldn't be good at doing deliverables. The networks will have quite a big deliverable list that you need to. So it's not just a film; it's a lot extra that you have to think about. So yeah, certainly that's those people worth the weight in gold.
You've been on many fun and exciting adventures. What would be some of the funniest things that have happened to you out in the field as a wildlife filmmaker? Maybe not while you were filming, but just being out there in that environment.
Well, there's a lot of things that happen. No shoot usually go without something goes wrong, and that's part of the charm, isn't it? So, I once were going up to film narwhals in North Canada, and the airline lost all my bags, Air Canada. And, I was stuck in a town called the Yellowknife for a week, over a week, because there was no other flights up there. And I said, I had nothing to do. So I rented a car, and I just ended up driving around and getting to know some locals, and ended up in some bars, and this is funny, weird situations that you end up in. Funny though, I don't know. Well, on that same shoot, we didn't end up getting that much narwhal shots on that, and there was a river. It was a beautiful river that was running there. And there's no people on this island. It's like there's one hut, and that's it. And this river had this amazing, huge char in them, like Arctic char. I never seen anything. It was like, and there was a fishing rod in this cabin that I borrowed. And there's polar bears everywhere. I'm standing with a bear spray. I actually had a shotgun as well. No, I have no idea how to use it. But and we were just throwing the lures in and reeling in these massive fish while we like kind of looking. There was a polar bear on the other side, and I'm standing reeling in this massive, like huge char. And it's just these, spur of the moment, weird situations. You didn't sign up for that. You were so focused on we're going to get aerials of narwhals, and there was no narwhals, so we ended up like it was turning into a fishing holiday.
Yeah, there's so many weird things that happen when you're out there that are so unexpected. One of the things that happened to me once, I was in the middle of the Namib Desert, and it was about 38 degrees, 39 degrees. It was boiling hot. And our tracker, who was there to help me find snakes, got lost. He just disappeared in the middle of the desert, and we were going to call search and rescue and try and find the guy. And then he rocked up about 4 hours later, and he wanted to sell us necklaces from a local village. And we were really pissed off at him. We told him, like, hey, we've been looking for you for ages. And he said, I didn't realize I was just around the corner.
Wow.
But he was on the other side of the sand dunes, 2 sand dunes or 3 sand dunes away. And he had just disappeared. And we were frantic to find him because it was boiling hot.
So he just left.
Yeah, we thought he had a heart attack.
Yeah, no, there's some amazing, some really amazing situation you end up in. I think it's this privilege when you're when you're a wildlife cameraman. You get to spend a long time in one location, and you really get to know it, and you get to know your subject usually. So if it's lions, the relationship changes. I remember I was filming it was a story I developed, but we were in Rwanda, and they had just released lions back to Akagera National Park. And so they opened up the gate, and we followed them, like day in, day out. We followed them. And it was amazing to see lions returning to an area where there hadn't been lion for almost 30 years or 25 years, stand to be corrected if it's 18 or whatever it was, but it was a significant long time. And it was crazy to see how the other wildlife reacted to lions, because there was a few leopards around, but that's it. There wasn't any big predators. And these lions were just having the craziest times. Like they were just running up, killing everything. The elephants remembered. They had it ingrained. They like charged up. Giraffes didn't like them. And buffaloes, they were just like going nuts. Buffaloes were just like run up and try to find them, like snorting. Baboons barked, but like most of the playing games, like zebras, impala, they just like had no clue. They were lying. I remember I filmed, it wasn't me, the cameraman that was with me, Dale Hancock, he filmed a water buck lying down. The lion just comes stalking towards it. The water buck turns around and it's just like, I don't know, and then gets taken out. And it's crazy. And you just really get to know these lions. And, we would sleep, and the lions would sleep under the car or next to the car because we were with them 24/7. And I would go to bed and I would sleep, and we would sometimes sleep with because they had these VHF collars on so we could find them. But the lions would snore and I would sleep. And so you sleep, on the Land Rover, and the lion's head is here, but you're just like, I don't know how far away you are, but you're not very far away. And it snores, and you get so used to that sounds. So you just sleep there as well. So you're right next to the lion, and when the lion wakes up and walks away, you kind of wake up, where's the snoring? Oh, she's gone, and then you go off to try to find it. So this weird relationship, that wasn't being mistaken. There's just you can't step out of the car or do anything silly. You still get probably taken out completely. But, you get to know the individual animal to a very strange. Yeah, strange. It's, and it's strange to hear how, years later you hear that was Shema, her name was, she passed away. She was quite old when she got up there. But, you think about these animals afterwards, you think that's another place in the world. And how's Shema doing? I'm wondering how they're doing. And it's almost a bit sad to, depart as well from when the film is done or the filming is done.
This weekend I was down in the coast of Ecuador, and the vegetation is shrubland. It's very, very dry, and it reminds me a lot of very much like Hoedspruit area in South Africa. And in my mind, I was just panning across with my eyes, and I was having a look to see what there was. And I almost thought I saw an elephant or a giraffe. And it's just, as you say, it's so sad to think that, you have that experience and then you just can't go and be there the entire time. And it's just, we're very lucky to have been able to visit those places. There's been a few that really stuck out. And this one time, we were doing a story for National Geographic in Chile, in Torres del Paine National Park, on pumas. And there you have to walk after the cat. The cat is big. The pumas are big. They're the same size as a leopard. They're a large cat. And, we're there, and this female, I think her name was Rupestra, and she had a little mark on top of her back. And she had 3 cubs, and they were sitting 10, 12 meters from them and filming. This was before a lot of rules were put in. This was pretty early on, in I think 2015 or something. So it's quite a way back. And it didn't look like anything was going to happen, but we knew she hadn't been eaten for a while, and we obviously wanted to hunt. And so, I had an assistant. We have these massive cameras. I had a CN20, which is a large, heavy camera. I think we were back then shooting on the F55, Sony F55, and a big tripod. I like this big Atlas 3050 big tripod. And I had an assistant that helped me carry the tripod. I had a rucksack with all the battery and the camera. And we would just walk after these animals and, kind of line up for the shot. And she was playing around with the cubs. They were playing around. She looks like she was sleeping. So my assistant said, "Look, do you mind if I run down to the lodge?" It's quite far away. It'd probably take 40 minutes to walk. And I'll come back with our lunch. So I thought, okay, it's fine. She's not going to move. So it's all good. Okay, you go. And, a few minutes after he's gone, he's out of sight. And of course she gets up, and the cubs run and they hide. And then off she goes, and she's hunting. And now I have to carry everything. So I put the camera on the tripod, and I tighten it down, and I carry this massive beast, while I'm walking after this puma. And obviously she grew up around people, or they all do there, because they're so used to, people walking around them. So she doesn't care about me. And that's the amazing thing. She's a guanaco. She gets down into the stalk. I got to watch out so I don't screw up the hunt. So I got to move away. I can't be right behind her. So I got to watch her. But I'm not watching the cat. I'm not watching, her as it's just incredible to be a part of a hunt like that, and to be able to walk with a hunting cat. We followed the whole day, and then she eventually stalked down, and she got behind a bush, and she got onto a guanaco, jumped on top of it, and there was a big fight, and the guanaco it buckled her off, and it got away. But it's just amazing. Is this, you have got to be careful so you don't turn it into an anthropomorphism, anthropomorphize the animal. But it's like this trust, these humans are right. They've been around. This guy been filming me for 3 weeks now. He's not going to do anything. It's kind of like you have this privileged thought in your head. Well, I've seen that a lot in different habitats in Southern Africa. If you go and you film in places where there's less vegetation, maybe there's less food, the animals act very differently to other animals in shrublands or places with far more vegetation. And sometimes they'll be more relaxed, and sometimes they won't be. And it often depends on, as you say, their interactions with not just with humans but with the environment. And it's very easy to trust the animals, but often you're in not a lot of danger. And other times they're so skittish that you can just open your window slightly and they're off, and you can't even get anywhere near. So it always depends.
Sure.
But those moments are obviously fantastic when they happen, and you're able to feel like you won with the hunt.
Yeah, it's incredible. No, it's really are special moments. And then there's about 150 other moments which are not that special. When you sat in the hide for 20 hours a day and nothing happens.
Or when it's freezing cold and there's nothing going on and you still have to stand there.
Yeah, absolutely. Minus 45.
What do you miss the most about being out in the field as a wildlife filmmaker? And how does it compare to how you've arranged your work at this moment in time? What would be the pros and the cons, and what would you recommend to other wildlife filmmakers who would like to get out into the field?
There's many pros and cons. I think that what happens is that you got to kind of make a choice. You can still go in fields. I have good friends that own businesses, and they go to, if you've got a good team around you, but you can't be away without signal for 3-4 months. It doesn't work. So I think one of the things is just that it's sad in many ways not to be able to just disappear off the face of the earth and just be completely involved, and that's all it is. It's you and the storyline. It's you and this animal and what it does, the behavior. That's the golden rule of what we're doing is all behavior, right? So that is sad. Now you got to sit and answer emails. You can't be away for that long. All that stuff creeps in. And I think it's also, it's exciting. You pack up, 40, 50 cases of gear, which is not the exciting part. And you go off to maybe a new location. Maybe it's an animal you haven't filmed before. Maybe it's an area you haven't been in before. I remember, we went to filming, Komodo dragons in Indonesia, and it was just like, we couldn't film during the middle of the day, and all we did was just like snorkel around. We were right underneath a massive reef. It's like unbelievable stuff. That the guys were making amazing food, and then we went morning and evening filming the dragons doing their thing. So just like you feel like you can just kind of drift away and be there forever, but reality calls.
I'm imagining it happening now. I'm drifting off to go and snorkel and film Komodo dragons. That's where I'd love to be.
Yeah, well, they're amazing creatures.
What advice would you give to wildlife filmmakers that would like to make the progression more into the business side of things and maybe would like to help market themselves or get themselves out there?
Looking back at my career, I think that's one thing that I wish I'd, you can always wish this and wish that. But, if there was one thing I can pull out that I haven't done that well, I think it's that side. I don't think a lot of us go into this because we love the animals and we want to make these amazing films about these animals. But as time progresses, and as social media gets more important, and it's not just you got to have a presence, but you got to be able to be remembered and stand out. This is what I talked about in the beginning, where I had the skill of developing, and selling or coming up with ideas, and that a lot of people come to me and say, what should I do? What should I do? How can I get into the industry? And I think it's, when you have a niche market like the wildlife film industry is, you have a few companies, right? And then you have some of the big guys, Plimsoll, Wildstar, the BBC Natural History Unit. There's a few that are pretty much busy all the time. And you want to get in there as a cameraman. Each producer, each episode has a producer attached. That producer, it's his or her, responsibility to deliver beyond expectation to the head of, to the series producer or to the executive producer, and there again, answer to the network that paid them. And so there's a lot of, I think it's important for the filmmaker or the camera, if there's a person that want to be a camera person, that there's a lot of responsibility from those people on their shoulders, a lot of responsibility to deliver. So I think if you can mitigate as much as possible of their workload and just be an all around like great person to be around, that just makes it easy. It doesn't, complain about everything. I think most people that gets into wildlife film, they don't do that. But, I've certainly had it myself where I've had crew that are a bit difficult, and it's super stressful. You just want to get out there yourself. And so I think that's the one thing that I would pull out, and then it's having something that's different, that stands out. So if you're in South Africa, maybe you got access to great behavior, some sequences that, that's not a film, but it's a sequence. Maybe you shoot a lot of footage, maybe stock that you're selling, you just think about ways that you can stand out, just rocking up as a camera guy saying, "Hey, can you hire me?" It's hard. It's really hard because but it's possible. But then you got to like really, you got to work hard to get in there. But once you give it a chance, grab it and just blow everybody out of the water. Go over the top. Just like really, just be the absolute best version of yourself. And remember, that's also getting all the footage, but also being, as I said earlier, a really nice person to be around. I can remember like guys that would like get up early and like make coffee. Stuff that I always forget. It's like, it's so nice to have this guy around who makes coffee and shoots well. He shoots really well. One of my favorite guys, favorite camera guys, called Dale Hancock, is a South African guy. Is one of the reasons why I went into the industry and actually traveled to South Africa. I've used him on my productions over the period of time, and he's just, what he has is that, he's just, that you can just leave him out there for months at a time. He will just get it. You know that he's not going to be home watching Netflix, and to say he's going to be out there with the animal. And if there's a kill and if there's a hunt, he's going to get it. It's just, he just reads the animal and just knows what he's doing. And there's never a problem. I call him, shit, do you want more food? Do you want, no, it's fine. It just makes it so easy. And it's the safety as well. I know that he knows. He lived out there he lived in the bush for 12, 13 years. He knows the wildlife. So it's this security feeling for me where I know he's fine. He's not going to like get eaten by a lion.
Yeah, we used to stay on a wildlife in a nature reserve just outside of Hoedspruit. And it's, being in the bush is lovely. It's very safe. There's nothing dangerous about it. It's only the people that seem to do silly things when they're in nature that make it dangerous. But if you just have your wits about yourself and you are relaxed and don't go and get involved with things. We used to have people that were always attacked by zebra. And I used to walk my dogs every single day and go for a run in the afternoon, and they did absolutely nothing. I've never had any problems with zebra ever, and they would say that they would be attacked. And I know, in actual fact, what they're doing is they were trying to get photos and get selfies and get up as close as possible, and it had nothing to do with the zebra. It was just getting pissed off with them.
Right, yeah. No, that you can't do that. You really got to understand your limits.
What would be your advice for wildlife filmmakers that have a fantastic concept or an idea or a film that they really want to film, and they might be in the development stages of it and they might not have the funding? Maybe they need to get funding for it. What would be the way to draw attention to their project and to get people on board?
I think it depends what project it is. There's film funds that you can apply for. But they don't often, support a blue chip or a straight wildlife film. Usually have to be more of a cause behind it. Maybe, not a stronger story, but, human-driven story. I would advise everyone to think, especially in these days, things very creatively. See how you can get like crowdfunding. Maybe there's, people that can support you, private equity. That is possible. Our industry right now is in a real bad place. It probably is the worst it's been, at least since 2008. And it's hard to sell films. It really is hard to sell anything. So if you want to get your project across, the more security you have in your project, as in, I've shot this much, I've edited this much. It's like without making the entire film, the more chance you have of selling it. But to bring it back to maybe the basics of this is that if you have a project but you haven't produced and your team haven't produced for a network before, I think, teaming up with somebody that can be that support, not just the financial, but the structure around it, I think will be important. As I said earlier, you can go to a network straight away. If you know the commissioning editor, you can have this open conversation. I certainly wouldn't gotten many shows off the ground in the beginning hadn't I gone and filmed like really, promos that was, in depth. But it costs a lot of money as well, and you got to be careful how you invest your money, because there's no guarantee in this that you will get it back, and it's hard and very hard to sell shows.
For wildlife filmmaking, do you feel that camera gear is super important, or do you think that passion and enthusiasm, and maybe more so personality, is important to get your career going and get yourself out there?
No, definitely. Look, I think there's multiple ways of doing that. Look, if you have the ability and the money, and you have a lot of money, and you can buy yourself a Red Raptor and a CN20, and you can say to the production, hey, you can have this for like barely anything, and of course you have a higher chance of getting hired. But I don't think that's a great way in, and I don't think having your own gear. I run in South Africa, we have a rental house, and we rent specifically out to wildlife films. Film productions coming to South Africa to make films, and I hear a lot of chatter about camera guys that have bought their own gear, and sometimes that doesn't sell. And I for the life of me, I don't understand. You go onto YouTube and you have these YouTubers that make great content, and they like talking about like a Red, or why would you buy these cameras? Unless you need to shoot 8K RAW. So no, I don't think that you need, in order to get hired and to become a cameraman, I would not go and buy that gear. The problem becomes when and that's maybe an easy way to overcome, when you don't know how to use the gear. So say that you are really into it, and you buy an FX3, or as an FX3, right? The like Sony FX3, and you buy, some prime lenses or some zoom lenses, you got a screen and you can shoot, All you got to do is that you got to look at how are the guys shooting? Go look at Planet Earth, Go look at our planet. Go look at these production that wins best cinematography. How is a sequence made? You don't need film school. You look at that. Like, how is a sequence made? You can pick it apart. Okay, you need the tight shots. You need the big wides. You need to follow. You need to stop when the animal is stopping, right? This basic stuff, or you drift down. You have your own style, but you can look at what they're doing. They're not standing like that, and they're not like playing around, like So why are you doing that? Just look at what they're doing and replicate it. I know it's not that easy. You got to have a solid tripod. Don't go out in strong wind. What I would do as well is that I would go to, if you have a local rental house, maybe in your neighborhood or in your town, maybe you can go to them and they might have these cameras. That's expensive. And then you say, hey, I'm an up and coming DP. I would love to work with you guys, and I will recommend renting gear from you guys when I get a job. But could I, I'm not going to take the camera out, but could I start playing around with it? Can I try the cameras in-house? If they, they might give you a chance. And then you get hands-on experience with the lenses, and that becomes quite important, because it is quite different to film with a big setup, a Red, a CN20. So you got to get your hands on that equipment, but I would not recommend going buying it.
It's also a feeling. A lot of the lenses have got a certain feel to them, and you get used to working with them. And then if you were to even be a really good cinematographer and you jump to another set of lens, it'll feel completely different, and it'll be something that you're just not used to. And that'll obviously affect your workflow. It's also becoming more and more important to be able to not just do, you have these specialists that do long lens, and that's all they do. And I think, often as budgets are being cut and things are changing, I think you've got to be able to fly drone well, and really well. Not just like doing some aerials on a wide lens. You've got to be able to fly well, and you've got to be able to track with an animal on a 50 and really do cinematic moves, I think. You got to be able to, I'm not saying you should use an F1 shots over or a Cineflex, but I think that you should definitely be able to use proper Ronin rigs, stabilizers, gimbals, and do that well, because those moves are becoming more and more important. You have movements in all the frames. So, I think it's going to be hard if you don't have those skills. So you got to be a bit more multifaceted than you were maybe before. I think motivated camera movements come into wildlife filmmaking big time in the last 10 years or so. And now we look at a lot of these films on Netflix and the big productions, and you can see those tracking movements, and it's incredible how they're able to create that stuff. And as you say, stationary or locked off shots, just look quite boring compared to what's being produced right now, and everyone's trying to one up the next, and it's just getting crazy. It's really incredible what's being done. And another thing that you spoke about was drone filmmaking. That's how I got into wildlife filmmaking. And I just drone absolutely every single day. And I just thought, if I can't get in, I didn't have a big camera, and I didn't know how to show that I would be able to use that camera. But I got in through my drone work, and there was someone looking for a drone pilot, and I just focused my attention on that. And then I was able to learn everything else along the way. But as you say, if you're in the field, it's really important that you don't have to be good at everything, but you have to at least know how to use it. And if someone hands it to you, you can use the tool.
Exactly, yeah.
How do you think that wildlife films are able to balance factual content and entertainment? And is that a problem, or is that something that you have to address when you are trying to sell a film? Because obviously they're trying to entertain the public, and you've got a message as a wildlife filmmaker that you would like to share, and you obviously want to stay as true to the narrative of that species and that environment as much as possible.
Yeah, I think this comes back to, I'm not going to mention any names, but it comes back to the network. So you remember, diving a little bit into the sales process of a film. If you make a film and it's your film, and you go and try to distribute the film, as in you sell the film, the finished film, then you have editorial rights because, they're buying it at a much lower price. And usually they don't ask for that. But sometimes they ask for some changes. But in general, it's not going to be huge. If you come in with a pitch reel and you get it commissioned, say you get it commissioned by Netflix or you're getting commissioned by National Geographic, and they pay for the entire production, there's multiple ways. They might own all the footage. They might just own the outs. They might just own the film. There's many ways of doing this, but in general, they have the editorial control. So you got to understand. So if you're making a very ethereal, more, verite style documentary, you got to know where can I pitch this? Where can I sell this? Who would buy a documentary like that? So you got to understand the market a bit, because if you go and pitch something that doesn't fit the network, they're not going to listen to you. And if you are very, stuck on that, it has to be, this is the way the story is, and that's it, and that's fine, But then you got to understand where you're going, so your film won't get, changed to that. So if you're going to purely entertainment, then it's it becomes like another film.
I think the expressions, you have to kill your babies, or you have to let go of all those notions that you had before about what the message was, or what you were trying to do in the beginning, if you're going to go that route, or you're going to have to just do it yourself.
There's so many ways. I mean, I have a good friend, he's in Norway, called Asgeir. He makes films. He makes a couple of films every 10 years, and they're all award-winning films, and he doesn't, it's just his way or the highway. And that's great. When you build a name, when you have a name, Werner Herzog, nobody's going to tell him how to do it. Then of course you make great films, and that's it. And you can afford that. And then that's what you're buying into. But maybe realize that if you haven't made many great films, then, I'm not saying you don't have that skill, because I'm sure you do. But it's also being humble and understand that, these networks, looking at the numbers, they are, when they buy your film, they got the knife on the throat as well, because they're buying a film and they need good numbers.
Do you think that there's a movement at the moment with these networks to focus their attention on fewer films and make them as big as possible so that they can be as successful as possible? Or are they diversifying and creating more opportunities for different people around the world? What would be the strategy that they're trying to use?
Well, it's hard to know, because I think everyone right now is like, what's happening? When is this drought, to put it mildly? And it's not just wildlife; it's everywhere. So we have for a while, right, been in this holding pattern, whereas cable is going away, and the streaming services are up and coming. But they are not making as much money as they were hoping. Advertising is a problem, and we don't really know. And the thing with wildlife is that it has a long shelf life. And with that, I mean that, if I'm a streaming service and I buy a big documentary series that narrated by David Attenborough, I have that and it's going to be there for a while. Do I need to buy another one? Not really. It has a long shelf. It can probably be there for a few years. So I think it varies greatly individually from the network and what's working, the big stuff and the smaller stuff. But we are definitely seeing fewer and fewer outlets for wildlife filmmaking, and the ones that are trusted that we all used to go and sell to are becoming smaller and smaller. Then there's other ones that's coming up that's doing well. Like I think Love Nature and by Blue Ant is doing well, but we are seeing less money. We have to go to more network to get the money to produce these films. And, when I say that a budget of $300,000 or $400,000 for a wildlife film it's not good. You're going to struggle, some of these films cost $2.5 million, $3 million an episode, to really get that, I spent, a year in the field. It's hard to get that money, very, very hard. And that then it's, it becomes a question of how profitable it is also as a business.
Well, there's a lot more wildlife filmmakers that are going the YouTube route and putting up content there, and they're able to get funded and they're able to crowdfunding and get their projects out there into the world. How does that affect the networks? Because obviously if there's competition and if people are making films that cost a huge amount of money and someone else can go out and make maybe enough money to survive or maybe even more money, and they're one-man band and they're doing it on YouTube, that must obviously take away a market share for the bigger networks.
I think that the new generation, is it Z?
I have no idea. I'm in denial of which generation I am.
Oh, right, yeah.
So,
well, I'm just turned 40. I know I am a millennial. So I think that, and my son, I should know this. He's 19. I think it's Gen Z. Gen Z
in the US, Gen Z in the UK.
There we go. Yeah. I think that, they're the ones that are going to control this in the end, and what are they watching, and in many ways, what are we watching, how much time are we spending on these streaming platforms? I don't know. Like, it was interesting. I was walking past some houses yesterday. I was looking, quite a lot of TVs were on, but it was sport, it was a soccer game. It's big here in England, but I find myself watching very little. If I have a lunch break, I might put something on YouTube quickly, like some guy that's fishing. I don't know, and you're watching stuff on Instagram, these shorts. It's an interesting. I don't think it would definitely won't go away. We would need long form content, but and I don't know if there will always be wildlife has always survived, and I think it will. I don't think these YouTubers will take over that, but they certainly open up a new avenue. But instead of being so damn afraid, like so many of us are, and myself included, like, what's going on? I think that we can look at what you said there, how are these guys raising money? Maybe that's something to look at, because certainly a few years ago, nobody was looking at that. We all laughed about that, right? Like when I started being a cameraman, remember those guys posting stuff on Instagram, even the ones that had signed a contract saying you can't post anything, they kept on still posting, and they did much better than everyone else. Stupid social media, narcissism, oh, screw that. They're doing well. They understood it. It's marketing. It's all about marketing yourself. And so I think, I don't think that YouTube maybe will take over a high-end blue chip market, but I do think that, there's definitely room, and I'm no specialist in how one makes money on YouTube, but I think that kind of platform certainly will play a big role going forward.
I think the good thing about that is that we're just getting more choices, because there's a lot of blue chip films like that, people like myself and people like yourselves, that we would like to sit down and actually watch something that's well made. And as you say, I don't think that that's going to go away. But we might have watched other content when we were younger, had it have been available. and it might be something senseless, like a 60-second clip or something that we can learn a huge amount from in a small amount of time. And that might spur you on and make you want to go and watch more content from that content provider. Maybe if that have been available on the networks or on TV a long time ago, we would have enjoyed that as well. We just don't know because it wasn't available. So I think they're both very, very good options. And what's cool is that you see a lot of things like BBC Earth now. They're also fighting for their space on social media and on YouTube, and they're doing exactly the same thing that the small guys are doing, which is awesome, because you can be a small content creator and you can be creating stuff that's just as important as the big guys.
No, for sure. I think it's giving, I think advertisements on social media, like we know it's big, but it's just going to grow. So that's a good market to get into, branded content. And I think, the problem is, though, we're still standing, how do one make money on it? Because it's not easy. It is not easy to make money. There's a lot of new streamers coming up, smaller streamers, but the budget are small. And so when you are, even if you run around doing everything yourself, it's still going to cost hundreds of thousands to create these films. So it's still hard to find that funding for the average person. I think, I'm no YouTube expert, a lot more about this, but I find, the ones that really thought this out, that can also sell merchandise, and figure it out that way, not just views, right? That's, then you start talking. Just putting stuff out there for an individual person running around making a film about squirrels might be tricky to make money, unless you have the ability to raise funds.
Well, funding is definitely an issue for YouTubers, just as it is for production companies. I just think that it's there's a lot more risk involved when it's other people's money and when there's a lot more people involved. So one of the liberating things about doing stuff on YouTube is you can just try, you can practice, you can just put it out there, and it can be an absolute flop, and no one gets hurt, hopefully no one gets divorced, no one loses their job, and everyone's fine at the end of it. Before, I think people were very skittish and scared to put their content out there, and the contracts didn't allow it. But now there's a lot of wildlife filmmakers that are able to film themselves while they're out in the field doing something else, which is awesome.
No, it is awesome. Yeah, no, it's great. I'm a total sucker for playing a bit of YouTube. I use it a lot. And I think it can also, the funny part is that it makes the world so much more, social media and in general, it has its pros and cons, but, you can become your own, these people that are niching down into, like I would talk about fishing in the UK or a part of the UK, or you go birding and in Canada, I don't know, like you can contact these people and you can get advice and you can interact with them, Couldn't do that before. It was the TV, and there you go, you got presenter and that's it. They're untouchable. There's celebrities, whereas, these people are taking, that into their own hands. And, if they can monetize it, that's great. Maybe use it for become a tourist guide, or use it for, an ebook, or you use it for, it's almost, like there's so many business courses out there and how to run your business, and this stuff wasn't available. And it's just like, sorry, I'm going completely off topic here, but, understanding like, the housing market, and how to get into property. I mean, when I grew up, like didn't understand. That was like the secret stuff that people talk about on golf courses, right? Where it's like, well, now you can go and take courses and understand, no, this is how you actually become wealthy. You might pay for it, but this is how you become wealthy in property. So it's amazing. It's like, I think, which is like, instead of being afraid of it, we should try to utilize it. But it's still that, how to make money on it. It's not so easy.
I think when it comes to making money and education, I think one of the biggest tools that I use, that I love, is Audible. You can just buy a book, and you can buy a book for $10, and it can make you a lot of money. And you can just get all the information that's been passed on from generation to generation, and it's in your ears, and you listening to it driving to work.
I love Audible.
It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I used to listen to that when I was doing I've learned a few projects up in North Finland as a cameraman before, and you sat in the hide for 18 hours a day, and you sleep during the day, and then you at night to late evening to next morning you hide. And in general, like, you kind of have to listen for the crows and the warning calls for the wolves and the bears to arrive. But, you know, if you just have one ear on, at least you can listen a little bit, and you can just sit and look and scan. And I would just listen to these books, and it's an incredible world. You just, like, you know, Audible is just absolutely amazing. I still do it, you know, just every time on the run. Audible. Self-help books.
Yeah, they're very useful.
Yeah.
I went through an ultra marathon running stage, and I was running about, at one stage I was running 21 kilometers every day.
Wow. That's a lot.
But then I thought it wasn't enough. So then I was doing that Monday to Friday, and I was resting on a Saturday. And then I was running, started off with a marathon every Sunday. Then I thought, well, that's quite easy. This was 2 years back. And so then I thought, well, I can just go to 50. 50 is fine. 50 is doable. Then I started going to 60 and 70 and 80. And I was, so the most expensive thing about running long distances was not the actual running shoes. It was the audiobooks. Because I would just run out of music to listen to, because it just goes around in circles. It just becomes irritating. And I would go through, as you say, a self-help book every Sunday, because it's 8 hours of self-help book. And then I still had another 2 hours or 3 hours to listen to music, because it would be a 10-hour run or 12-hour run.
It's also a great place when you're doing a run or gymming to listen to podcasts, like, you know, like your podcasts here. I do listen to a lot of that, so it's quite nice. When you're saying that, you know, I think, you know, us that gotten into this wildlife filmmaking, I think, you know, in many ways, I feel like we're so used to, like, pushing against, like, you know, a wall that's almost unbreakable in order to get over. I feel like, you know, you're saying when you go for these runs, I feel like I have certainly not run anything close to what you'd run, but I go on these runs and I kind of gather my mind, and it's like, okay, just continue going. Let's continue going. I've been doing this all my life, you know, like these short, obviously much shorter run, but it helps stimulate and kind of motivate the brain to just kind of continue.
I think one of the most important things about doing exercise and just getting out into nature is the ability to just turn off, just stop thinking. For me, that's the most important thing about going for a run or just going out, like you went for a walk today, is just turn off. Just, you know, you've got no commitments. You're able to just relax and rewire your brain.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's super important. You've got to have nature. It's the only thing in the UK. It's not a lot of nature. Well, there is a lot of nature. People love nature, but there's not a lot of, like, big places not a huge amount of wild forest left.
Well, it's always that there's a lot of nature, but it's often not where the work is. So you've got to be
right.
And it's a catch-22.
That's true.
What would be some advice that you would give to wildlife filmmakers that would like to follow a similar career path to yourself, and specifically filmmakers from around the world that might be looking at entering into Bristol? Because you say that you wanted to go to Bristol to be a part of the hub, for good and for bad. What would be the easiest way to get in there and to be part of the community?
Yeah, I think, you know, Bristol has been, for a while, it's for a long time now, you know, because of the BBC. It's been like the hub of wildlife filmmaking. South Africa certainly had a lot of companies at some stage, and so did DC and Silver Springs, where National Geographic is still in their DC. But I don't know. I used to think and say to people, because there is a school there, there is a very good University of Western Bristol, I think it's called, and they do a wildlife filmmaking course, and it's affiliated with the BBC, and a lot of the lecturers are these very successful companies that come there, and they'll teach you how to, you know, be a wildlife cameraman or not a wildlife cameraman, a wildlife filmmaker. I had a good friend that advised him to go there, and he took it. And the problem is, I think, you know, if you're not British, right, and if you don't have a passport, you have to get out of there. So problem with that is that you build up connection in a country that you're not allowed to work in. And you build up those connections. And that's the thing with film school. I would advise anybody to go to film school in the place that they want to work in. So if you want to work in the UK and if you want to work for these companies, great. I think you should go there. That's a great start, great school. But even if you can't because of visas and I don't know what, then I'm not so sure if it's the right thing to do. I think going back to either taking the course and then going back to maybe setting up something in your own country and offering something unique, offering something different. Making it easy, a fixing service that also requires, you're a camera person, but you can fix a bit, you can help people get permits. Think out of the box. I never came to Bristol as a cameraman. I was at Wildscreen, I did that usual thing, but, I set a company up. So that's a bit different. I'm not looking for work. So I set up a company and I'm in Bristol because there is an enormous talent pool of amazing people that have made wildlife films for years and years and years. Arguably, probably one of the best places in the world to gather talent. And so all these amazing people at my fingertips, I can call them. If I need an amazing director, if I need a great camera guy, if I need this, I can call them and they're all there. And what's the beautiful part of it is that I can also walk out my office or my house for that matter. And I can go and I can have a pint or I don't drink much, but I can have a coffee with somebody in the industry and I can talk about development. I can talk about how terrible the industry is or how well the industry is doing or this sequence or that sequence. It's nice to be able to socialize and be in that hub. So I would, for that, it's important to keep up to date. It's important to have the most relevant information. Just like with the cameraman and his gear, you need to know the new stuff that being used in wildlife. So for that, it's a pros and cons of coming to Bristol. I think that for people rocking up and just want to be a cameraman and you're not from the UK and you don't have to be from the UK, but work permit, it might be tricky to land the job, but you hear about that all the time as well.
My takeaway from that is that it's all about being able to offer something to the community or offer something to others, and not really to be out there looking for what they can give to you.
I have a good friend of mine. He was my assistant on a Wolverine film we did. Very eager, a great guy. He was based in Finland. And he was doing commercial work, and he really wants to get into wildlife. He's Namibian actually, and somehow ended up in Finland. Beautiful country, by the way. Wanted to come and learn wildlife filmmaking, and he kept on calling me, and I was like, well, so "Who is this guy?" And cool, okay, come, you can. And I usually like you people say, "Oh, I'll come work for free," and it's just like, no, we can't really have you work for free. It doesn't work like that because there is rules about that as well. And usually you're just in the way, because you don't know what you're doing, and it's just going to be a mission. So I don't need the help, It's better without. But anyway, he came up and he's great, super positive guy. I wish I could have some of that positivity. Like it was just amazing. Really nice guy to have around. Turned into a good friend, and I suggested to him that he goes to Bristol and he'd take that because he has a British passport. And he did that course. He met his wife there. They also did the course. He got a job at the BBC. He was a kit manager, I think, for a while. And then he figured out, no, we're going to go to Costa Rica. She was Costa Rican. We're going to set up shop there. We're going to do fixing. We're going to do camera work. And by then, he had developed a lot of skills. So he was a cameraman. And that's what he's doing now. And he's, you have to talk to him how well he's doing, but I think, he looks like he's landing a lot of work. And he's always so positive to talk to. You get this, he calls me and he has I got this great idea for a film. I'm talking to this client. It's just really positive hustler. and I think that course really helped him to, steer into, but, he went to Costa Rica, a place where there's a lot of wildlife. His wife is Costa Rican, and they have the local contact, and they can offer something unique. They got gear, they got fixing services, they got great stories, and that's how last time I heard of him, he was shooting something for Silverback. All these big companies. So that's you find a way in that's unique.
Yeah, so it's definitely about offering what you can and what's different to everyone else, because every environment's so different. Here in Ecuador, we've got 4 different biomes, and they're all very, very different. And some of them, like the Amazon, takes a really long time to get to. It's not so easy like people would think. Like if you've spent time in Kruger, you can pretty much arrive in Johannesburg and you can be in Kruger in the afternoon. And you can do that here, but that's not the way that the culture works, and that's not the way that things work out. So you have to plan ahead, and it can be quite frustrating. So to have local fixers, like you say, to be able to do that side of the job makes things a lot easier.
Absolutely.
What would you consider your proudest moment as a wildlife filmmaker, or proudest moments as a wildlife filmmaker?
I think personally, there's a lot of memorable thing personally. We talked a little bit about that. When you feel like you, as a cameraman, I keep on going back to the cameraman part of this, is much more interesting to talk about than sat in front of a desk trying to sell a film, right? But I think is that to win, and I'm saying this because it's to win the trust of the animal, right? It's somewhat imaginative, but when you crack the code, if it's you finally get the behavior that you waited for a month. The animal comes out like a ghost. You've been thinking about the situation so many times, and it happens right in front of you, and you don't even know if you actually filmed it. And you've got to watch the tape back. Just, did that happen? Wow, it actually happened. And those are the personal things you carry with you. I think as wildlife filmmakers, we honestly have it's easy. It says, like everyone says, this is like, oh, we gotta. As environmental filmmakers, we got to, make people more aware of what's happening. And, I think that's something that I remember we made a film about lions, and, there was no money to translate the film into the local language. And sadly, as we know, a lot of the places where these films are made, the locals don't get to see them, which is revolting, right? These are the people that actually really see the film. We translated the film into the local language, and we teamed up with a conservation organization. We raised the money through crowdfunding, actually. And we ended up showing the film in front of the Prime Minister, and then the conservation organization took the film and they made these big screens, and they traveled around the villages and they showed it. And that's something that I feel like, when we're able to give stuff like that back, and there's been a few times where we managed to do a little bit. We should have done a lot more, to be honest, but we've done a little bit, and that feels like that you're doing at least the right thing for the environment. You're not just in and out, and that's it, because that happens. You're in there, you're filming the behavior, and that's it. You're gone. You're done your job. You go. That's it. I got to talk about the Emmy, obviously, that you can see behind me. That's a while back now, 2022, 21. We won, my company won 3 Emmys for The Penguin Town. It's a show from South Africa on Netflix, and we won Best Cinematography. So that was obviously a huge communal effort with all local crew. It was the only one that was not South African. And we kind of took that home, I felt, to South Africa, which was quite nice to get, 9 months of working, of shooting every day, multiple crew. And they're all local, and it's all, many of them grew up in that town. So that was a nice achievement.
Often we don't really realize who our audience is or who gets to see our film. And as you say, like an outreach project like that, where you're able to show your film to local communities, is so important. I've seen that with snake removals and educating communities about snakes in Southern Africa. Often you just go there and you have a conversation with someone in the town, and then it snowballs, because they'll speak to someone, and then that person will speak to someone else, and before you know it, everyone's relaxed about snakes. And suddenly snakes that were a huge issue before, it's not even an issue, because they might have a fear of a snake or an animal that doesn't even exist in that area.
No, it's beautiful. I've seen that so many times where you're not advocating at all to pick up a snake, but if you do know your snakes and you pick up a harmless snake, and you show it around, and it just opens up a new world for people. It's so important.
Well, Alex, thank you very much for being on the show today. It's been lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Robert Wedderburn Podcast. If you would like to hear more of these episodes and you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel and you're watching this on YouTube, then don't forget to subscribe. Or if you're listening to this as a podcast, then follow wherever you listen to your podcasts, and I will see you in the next episode.